Newt Gingrich is with us. So yesterday we've got the video and we got the connections where the money comes from the campaign. It goes to the DNC. It goes to the Democracy Project. And it goes right to these dark arts political operatives that are fomenting, basically violence at Trump events and a false narrative. Now, you watch the tape today, and here they are plainly saying and orchestrating voter fraud on a massive level. What's your reaction to it?
Well, first of all, we also now have actual checks cut by the campaign to one of the operatives. So I have a very simple first question. Where is the FBI? Why is the FBI not investigating this? If you have a deliberate, willful effort to foment violence, to break up a presidential campaign, to intimidate voters, where's the Federal Bureau of Investigation? I know Comey's in the tank for Hillary, but he has some obligation to enforce the law, and the FBI should be opening up an investigation of these people right now, including an investigation of the people at the Clinton campaign who were paying these people.
Well, let's go through the money where they actually explain it in their own words. It says the campaign pays the DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Foval Group, and they go out and execute either the intimidation, the violence, or the voter fraud. So I don't even know where to begin here. If Comey hasn't done anything, they're talking about Congress investigating before the election. No. But you and I both know that Congress is not going to get that job done.
Look, I think that Speaker Ryan and Majority Leader McConnell should both, in a direct letter to Comey and to the Attorney General, insist that the FBI now, immediately before the election, investigate this. This is intimidation, which is against federal law. It is a violation of federal election law. It is a level of collusion between the campaign, the Democratic National Committee, these outside groups. And some of it is clearly for the purpose of engaging in intimidation against rallies and against political activities. Now, it's amazing how fast the Obama administration could get FBI agents to a variety of places that fit their agenda, and how impossible it is to get them to simply enforce the law. But the first demand here should be, this is not about politics. This is not about you and me talking. This is about a fundamental threat to our democracy, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation has an absolute obligation to open up by tomorrow. They should be doing it tomorrow. People should be nagging them tomorrow morning. Where are your agents? When are they going in the field? Who are they going to investigate?
I'd like to know, what did Hillary know and when she know it? What did the DNC know and when did they know it? And what did they know about the payments and what was being done? We've got collusion on a lot of levels here. I mean, you have Hillary Clinton on the email server scandal. She was tipped off by the State Department, tipped off by the Justice Department. We now know that emails were sent back and forth between Hillary and Obama, and we now know Obama lied when he said, "Oh, I learned about it just like you. I learned about it from the press." Well, he didn't learn about it from the press because he was sending emails himself. And then you've got Podesta and other Clinton operatives talking about not sending what was a subpoenaed email between the POTUS, the president, and Secretary Clinton. And I'm thinking, so you got collusion not only in the email scandal, now you're talking about collusion here.
Look, this is like a bad update of The Godfather, in which Hillary Clinton is playing the Marlon Brando role. I mean, every time you turn around, this is a conspiracy of crime carried out by a wide range of people who seem to be absolutely oblivious to the law. I mean, they don't even think about the fact they're breaking the law because it doesn't matter to them. And I suspect in the back of their heads, they all assume in the end that Barack Obama will pardon them if anything actually comes down.
On the tape yesterday, Foval actually goes into how the operation is set up. Now, this is beyond the money that I just described as it's passed back and forth, but they set it up to allow the DNC and the Clinton campaign, in his words, not mine, plausible deniability in the event that the true nature of the deliberate violence is discovered. The thing that we have to watch is to make sure there's a double blind between the actual campaign, the actual DNC, and what we're doing. The double blind is there so they can have plausible deniability that they heard anything about it. Isn't that an admission that they know about it and they're just protecting them in case they get caught?
Of course. Look, a conspiracy to avoid people knowing that there's a conspiracy is still a conspiracy. What this guy is describing to you, and what the flow of money seems to be describing, is that they had a willful and deliberate effort to set out to violate the law, to intimidate American voters, and to do so on behalf of a campaign which was funneling money to them. Now, I don't care how many linkage points there are. If it turns out the campaign was funneling the money and people clearly understood what they were doing. I mean, you know the campaign was happy the day that there was so much threat of violence that Trump had to abandon his rally in the south side of Chicago.
Well,
and
Hillary actually made a statement
that
about
they didn't know that.
Yeah, and then Hillary makes a statement
clear,
condemning the violence that her operatives organized, orchestrated, and made happen. And basically everything she was saying about Trump, she was the one that was guilty of. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, remember, she is the person who said you have to have a public face and a private face, and the public face felt sad while the private face did it.
All right, coming up, part 2 of my interview with Newt Gingrich. And up next, we'll ask him about the new WikiLeaks revelations. We'll also put them on the screen for you so you can stay up to speed, and then also later tonight. Donald Trump's campaign putting out a video explaining Hillary Clinton's pay-to-play scheme. Monica Crowley, Doug Schoen will weigh in later tonight, and much more as we continue from the MGM Grand. We're in beautiful Vegas. We're on the Strip one night before the final face-off between Clinton and Donald Trump. Tomorrow's third and final presidential debate. Now, it's all happening in less than 24 hours, and of course, you can watch it right here on the Fox News channel. But first, here's part 2 of my interview with former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. So, do you think the Project Veritas tapes, where we've got people literally inciting violence connected to the DNC, connected to Hillary's campaign, and institutionalizing voter fraud at a level we'd never hear anybody ever admit in the past, and do you think that coupled with the WikiLeaks revelations, what impact is this going to have on the race, which is 3 weeks from today? I think voters go to the polls.
I think all of it wears down on Clinton. I think all of it makes her even less desirable, even more frightening. I mean, if you have people doing this now, can you imagine if she has the power of the presidency, the kind of things she will do, how dangerous she will be to our civil liberties, and how willing she will be to go after people in ways that are very, very, I think, dangerous to the whole survival of the rule of law in this country. So in that sense, I think all of these pieces come together in a way that are just a further reminder of how bad she is, how bad her immediate staff is. I mean, the whole thing that came out this morning where they're saying, well, we really can't support Israel too much because that'll make our left-wing allies really unhappy. These kind of things come up over and over again, and the more you pull back the mask, the more you realize that the secret Clinton and the secret Clinton team is a really pretty, I think, very frightening system of very radical thoughts, very willing to break the law.
When you think of all of the time that the media spent on allegations against Donald Trump, most of which have now been fully debunked, although it took a week, and all the time, while that was happening, simultaneously, all these WikiLeaks are being dropped, the media paid zero attention to it. Now, we do have the latest revelations today, and I'll put that up on the screen with a long list of other things that I think would probably prevent any other person in the country from ever becoming president. The new revelations are simple. Clinton wanted Obamacare to unravel, I assume because she wants a single payer. Podesta called Senator Bernie Sanders a doofus. The campaign found a gender pay gap at the Clinton Foundation. Podesta listed potential VP candidates by racial and gender food groups. And aides thought Obama's remarks about the private server didn't make sense. Now, I'm going to continue to roll all of the earlier revelations that most people don't seem to know, but you can even take it back further. When Debbie Wasserman Schultz was fired, there was racism and sexism and misogyny and anti-Semitism on full display by the Democrats. In other words, the very things they always accuse Republicans of.
Look, when you just learned the one thing that you mentioned in passing, the highest paid people in the Clinton Foundation were 3 times as likely to be men rather than women. And just start with that single fact. And yet, where is the elite media? Where is the anger? Where is the outrage that the organization she and her husband controlled paid men dramatically more than it paid women? You know, doesn't it? And this goes back to the degree 96% of the money given by reporters to campaigns this year, 96% went to Hillary Clinton. That is a 24-to-1 ratio, and it tells you why you're dealing with this constant barrage of propaganda masquerading as news. But it's not news. It is propaganda designed to undermine Donald Trump, and frankly, his job tomorrow night is to overcome that.
You think about it's NBC. Literally, they're fed questions when Hillary's going to be interviewed. It's CNN operatives feeding questions to the Clinton campaign in advance of a town hall. It's the AP that have friendlies that they go to. It's the Atlantic. It's John Harwood at CNBC. It's the LA Times, the New York Times. It's Salon. It's the San Francisco Chronicle. It's, the Boston Globe. Cheryl Atkinson, who used to work at CBS, had an interesting piece that she put out. She calls it Newsgate 2016. I'll read you a small piece of it. She says, independent minds should be concerned about the latest revelations in the news media's unseemly relationships with government and political actors. While there are many responsible journalists working today, inside documents and leaks have exposed serious lapses constituting the most far-reaching scandal our industry has known. It's our very own Newsgate. I think that's true. That captures pretty well how deep this runs here.
And the point Cheryl's making is this is the largest example of total one-sided bias in the history of the American media. And that's why I said earlier today on your radio show, they should seriously consider dropping the term Columbia School of Journalism and replacing it with Columbia School of Propaganda. Just to be honest, we're not talking about news media, we're talking about propaganda. CNN is a propaganda machine. MSNBC is a propaganda machine. What the networks did the night that the Trump tape came out, when they put in 23 minutes on an 11-year-old tape, and the three of them combined put in 57 seconds covering WikiLeaks, that's pure propaganda. It's worthy of Pravda or Izvestia or the old Soviet-style
papers. Silencing? What do you think about John Kerry perhaps influencing, the silencing of Julian Assange?
Well, I think first of all, it's going to make a really interesting question, because everybody's assumed that this was the Russians and it's Putin and et cetera. If Assange matters that much sitting in the Ecuadorian embassy, then that's because it's Assange. But what you have, and you see this in all the WikiLeaks, you have the Obama administration, including Kerry, including the State Department bureaucrats, including in particular Patrick Kennedy, who ought to be fired today. You have an entire conspiracy to prop up and protect Hillary Clinton, to try to get her to the finish line, no matter how many allegations there are. And you also had, of course, the vice president suggesting that we might launch a cyber attack on Russia in response to a political event. I mean, this stuff is dangerous talk and can get us into a really big problem. But these people in the White House, Obama and Kerry and Biden are so utterly incompetent about this stuff that they could stumble into a real war if they're not careful, because they don't realize how dangerous this is.
Last question. In 3 weeks from today, the people in this country are going to go to the polls. If you had to give your best guess, who's going to win this election? Do you trust the polls out there now?
I think the polls are as accurate here as they were in Great Britain, and I think that the conservative populist movement has been winning in Austria, in Italy, in Iceland. I think it won decisively in Britain despite every poll, and I have a hunch that Donald Trump is going to end up as the next president, which will come as an enormous heart attack-giving shock to the left.
Fox News projects Donald Trump, the 45th president. Yeah.
I have to tell your audience.
Go ahead.
I'm at the Reagan Library. 45 minutes from where your radio career began at Santa Barbara.
That's correct. And that was, by the way, a
story none of your audience knows.
30 years ago. 30 years ago. And you're going to be at the Nixon Library tomorrow night if people want to go out and see you. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. Congrats on the success of the new book. And coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.